today in Tribal Strength Academy classroom to learn about muscles and women. Welcome, guys. So we know that there's a lot of misconceptions around females and lifting weights, right? Particularly in Fiji, which is part of the reason Tribal Strength Academy is set up here, to obliterate those preconceptions and to instill new ones that will serve you better, right? Now, here at the Academy, we relate everything back to one fundamental law, which is the law of balance, okay? And if you can understand the basic concept of balance, good, bad, night, day, yin, yang, death, life, existence, non-existence, if you can understand that basic concept, you can apply that to just about anything in life, and you can you then give yourself a framework or a frame of reference with which to be able to deduce the ultimate result that you're after, okay? So let's get to women and muscles, for example, okay? So firstly, there's a whole bunch of things that go into building muscle, right? But firstly, let's get to some real fundamental basics, the laws of nature, okay? AKA survival. What you guys need to understand is that when you're in the gym, you're exposing your body to a stress that is threatening your survival, and that therefore stimulates a need to overcome that threat or adapt to that stress, so that if you do come across that threat again, it's not going to kill you, right? So we put ourselves through all the pain of lifting and everything, and then so that we don't die through rhabdomyolysis, which is a condition where your muscles literally just waste away, as an example. Then your body gets stronger, it builds more muscle, and it gets better at burning energy so that you don't die, right? Because let's remember, guys, your body could care less if you've got 16-inch biceps and abs. All it cares about is survival, right? So when you look at this, we can start to get to some fundamentals of life, and then we can start to build on top of that, all right? So if we look at the difference between man and woman, right? Remember, balance, okay? Man's characteristics are typically that of energy burning, yeah? Or otherwise known as catabolic, okay? Which just means breaking down, all right? Common characteristics of the man: aggressive, offensive, hunt. Let's again get back to primitive times when we were just evolving, right? And we were going through just the stresses of trying to live, let alone trying to make money and put food on the table and have a career, which is now our modern form of living, hence evolution. But just think about just trying to get through to the next day, okay? These are some of the common characteristics that would have served man, right? Conversely, we have the woman on the other side, okay? She tends to be more nurturing. She's a bit more on the defensive, yeah? She keeps home nice, and she runs a tight ship, is what I'm trying to say. She's more of a gatherer as opposed to the hunter, okay? She is more life-giving or energy-conserving, okay? So energy burning, because the man has to go out and hunt and kill and protect the family and find new grounds and all that sort of stuff. And the woman is more energy conserving, because she has to create a home, she has to spread the good energy of love, nurture her children, and make sure that they have the best chance of life, okay? So, because of that, there are certain different demands that nature places on man, and then different demands that nature places on woman. And because of that, the biochemical makeup of the female and male genetics in terms of hormones is going to greatly dictate how we can actually build muscle, right? Because again, it's just an adaptation to a stress, okay? So let's get into the laws of muscle growth, okay? When we're talking muscle growth, we're really after this, muscle protein synthesis, okay? That's really all we're after, right? Now, I'll get into that in a little bit, okay? But first things first, muscles function under a law known as the all or none law, okay? Or all or nothing, all right? Which basically means that muscle fibers are contracting as hard as they possibly can, or they're not contracting at all. So for example, if I'm doing a bicep curl and the weight isn't that heavy, my brain will only recruit a certain number of fibers, but those muscle fibers are working as hard as they possibly can. It's not all of the muscle fibers working at about 60% of their maximum effort. It's as many as the body needs, but they're working as hard as possible, because it's an energy conservation thing. Because again, energy represents survival, okay? So that's how muscle fibers work, okay? They're working as hard as they possibly can, or they're not working at all. Now, with regards to actually building muscle, there's two main types of how we build muscle in the gym, okay? One is known as myofibrillar hypertrophy. Hypertrophy just means muscle building, okay? Myofibrillar means that we are adding new muscle fibers to the muscle, okay? So again, get back to the bicep. If I'm lifting something that's about 3 to 5 reps, okay? That's a pretty heavy weight. I wouldn't be able to lift it for more than 5 reps. So my brain is going, shit, that's a heavy weight. I need to be able to recruit more muscle fibers to get into the lift because they are going to work as hard as they possibly can. Remember, because it's not all of the muscle fibers working 50, 60% of their effort. It's as many fibers as possible working as hard as they possibly can. Okay? So myofibrillar hypertrophy is the addition of new additional muscle fibers, okay? Which is a lot harder for the body to do because each additional muscle fiber represents an increase in energy expenditure. And energy expenditure represents a threat to our survival, right? So your body's going to do everything it can to not add muscle fiber, right? And you're starting to see where this comes in. I'm going to explain why this is important for females and muscles and how you can train differently in a sec. The second type of hypertrophy is known as sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. And this is just where we take the individual muscle cell and we blow it up, literally just like a balloon. And this is why you see bodybuilders, you know, who do like 15, 20 repetitions, 8 to 12, typically anywhere from 8 reps up, they have that big rounded look, big puffy look, because they are training in a way that stimulates a different kind of hypertrophy, okay? Conversely, look at the powerlifter who rarely goes over 5 repetitions, okay? They're not particularly big, a vast majority of them, or bodybuilder big, I should say, but they are incredibly strong because they have density, muscle density. They have lots of muscle fibers in that one muscle group, as opposed to big muscle fibers in that one muscle group. Now, that's not to say that bodybuilders are purely just sarcoplasmic and powerlifters are purely just myofibrillar, but they tend to ear towards one or the other, all right? Now, this one is not as difficult as that one. You can actually get some of that within like one set of 12 to 15 reps. Everyone's experienced this. You've done a set of 12 to 15 reps, your bicep gets bigger, it blows up. That's a form of sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. The cell literally gets bigger and it gets better at holding on to nutrients, particularly water, carbohydrates, and protein, okay? Now, in terms of how we actually build muscle, the mechanics of building muscle, right? So this is you. Happy you doing an overhead press or an overhead squat, whatever. So you come into the gym, you lift some weights, right? You bust your nut. What then happens is you stimulate a metabolic pathway known as mTOR, okay, which stands for mammalian target of rapamycin. We don't need to go into anything further. I just think it sounds cool to say the full word. Moving on. What happens after we've stimulated mTOR is that muscle protein synthesis now starts to take place. Excuse me. Muscle protein synthesis is just the process of taking amino acids that are in the blood and elsewhere in the body and forming them to create new muscle fibers. Back here, okay? So think of it like this. This is how I learned it. mTOR is like the light switch and muscle protein synthesis is like the light. When you train, you flick on the light switch and you fill the room with light, yeah? Or when you train, you flick on the muscle switch and then you start to stimulate muscle protein synthesis. Now, in order for muscles to synthesize, to be made, you need a couple of ingredients, hence our little cauldron of growth over here. Now, obviously we need food, okay? It's pretty hard to build stuff without raw materials. So you need your proteins, you need your carbohydrates, you need your fats, okay? You also need a healthy concoction of the right hormones necessary to build muscle, okay? Now, the main ones are testosterone, okay? The main male hormone. Insulin, which is a main storage hormone. Growth hormone, which helps with obviously growth of all sorts of tissues. And insulin growth factor 1 or IGF-1, okay? You throw all of those into the cauldron along with your food, making sure we're getting good recovery after training too, and that's what gives us our massive guns, as you can see down here. Now, how does this relate back to women and muscles? Well, what we know here, right, is that, okay, well, if I train with 8+ reps, I'm going to be encouraging a bigger muscle fiber, right? Whereas if I train with lower reps, more strength-based work, it's going to be harder for my body to build new muscle fibers, but it will build new muscle fibers, and each time it does, I'm going to increase my body's ability to burn energy at rest. So it'll be a lot easier for you to keep fat off, okay? Not only that, but because you're building new muscle fibers and not making individual muscle fibers bigger, you won't necessarily get bigger, but you'll get more toned, you'll get leaner, you'll get more firm, right? And you'll get a hell of a lot stronger too, which is quite empowering for the female spirit. We see it with all of our girls who come down to our classes, okay? Not only that, but testosterone. Females don't typically have a high base level of testosterone. Nature won't allow it because man is the one who's supposed to go out and is supposed to be aggressive. He's supposed to be able to kill and hunt and provide food. So he needs testosterone because the characteristics of testosterone are aggression, muscle growth, androgenic effects such as, you know, facial hair, big strong bones, those sorts of things. Whereas conversely, the female is more estrogenic, okay? And that's a hormone that more encourages fat gain, as well as more of a, you know, typical female characteristics, more nurturing, more caring, more loving, all right? So nature just simply will not allow it. Now that's not to say that all women won't build muscle easier. Some women definitely build muscle easier than others, okay? Everyone's different. But as a general rule of thumb, it's unlikely for females to gain muscle very quickly. The other three, insulin, growth hormone, and insulin growth factor 1, this insulin and IGF-1 will get stimulated to a greater degree with sarcoplasmic hypertrophy-based training, okay? Which means that you'll sensitize the muscle fibers in that target area that you've just trained, and you'll make them more susceptible to soaking up nutrients. It's kind of like you take a sponge and you wring out the sponge through training, okay? So next time you come along to clean up some water, i.e. food, the sponge is better able at soaking it up, okay? Last thing, myofibrillar hypertrophy, strength training, like lifting heavy weights, stimulates a greater degree of testosterone, okay? Now, when females have a higher level of testosterone, they'll be able to build muscle easier, but still not to the level of man, all right? So what does this all mean for women and training, okay? Really simple, guys. When women are training with weights, sure, they can do a great deal of sarcoplasmic training, but if they structure most of their training around myofibrillar hypertrophy, they are less likely to get that feared bodybuilder look, and they are more likely to burn a lot more energy because they're lifting heavier weights using a greater amount of muscle, and they're more likely to tone up and get that nice lean muscular look because they're adding new muscle fibers, which is again increasing their ability to burn energy at rest. Okay, so that's pretty much it for today, guys. I just wanted to give you that quick little basic rundown as to the differences between man and woman and how muscles and women differ to man and muscles. If you guys have any questions, feel free to drop it in the comments below, shoot us a message direct, or best thing to do is just come down to one of our classes. We'll show you how to lift, we'll show you how to get strong, we'll show you how to get sexy, and then you'll be able to tell your friends about it. Until next time, catch you then.